ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiging sa sinaganan, alam ng puso, sa likid ko'y kumain, upang inilang, kita ng pag-ibig, sa magtutupin, kita pasisipin, sa nanagang tulong sa simula, sa langit kong pagkaw, ay natang tulakaw, sa pagkayang inaaral, at sa pagkawat ko'y natunay na nag-iigit, aking tubig na parang yakay lang, ang may magiging, mga araw na maraming magsinta, uli natin sa mo. Aking ikaya na ay marami, at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Simula noon hanggang ngayon, isa ang naging nayon. Magkaisa ang magbunod, kaibigan ay marunong. Ngayon tayo mula sa hamon ng tanga, hiyang sa panganin ng umalang. Pinagako sa puso ang paniniwala, ang ginhawang para sa kawalan. Ang sanggol tagumpay, mula na pawis, sugo at buhay. Kapayapaan na naungan, ay ating ang nakamtan. Alam kulira, pagpalay magsamoro. Magsamoro, na ikaw mamahalin. Walang ibigil sa damdamin, mga pangako'y tutuparin. Habang buhay kami sa'yo'y magpapantay, mananatili sa puso't isipan. Ang lahat tumutin ay nagpulis ng buhay, nasa pilingan ay kapal. Ang sanggol tagumpay, mula ng pawis, sugo at buhay. Kapayapaan na naungan, ay ating ang nakamtan. Alam kulira, pagpalay magsamoro. Ang Bureau Station Pinong Balita at Ibabahan ay tumatalay sa naisupang kasalukuyan at napapanahon. Mapapolitika, mapatinong, mapakomentaryo at balita ang programa ito'y patas sa lahat. Walang kinikilingan, walang tinatampilan, at walang tinapamigan ang programa ito. Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho lamang.
Okay, ang Time check natin, 46 minutos. Okay, pasado alas 6 ang programa natin sa Consolidated News. Okay, dito po sa Himpilan. Okay, ADLSNTV Corporation. In the heart of Filipinos, kasama po ang global citizen at saka Muslim Ummah. Okay, global community ay para sa lahat mga suki, no? Okay, okay, babati ba ako? Babati pa muna. Okay, dito po sa programa Halo-Halo Special, Opinion Balita at iba pa. Okay, kasama po sa Serbisyo Publiko, Tinig ng Mamamayan. And then, sumbungan ng mamamayan ang programa natin, no? Ayan, intelligence sources, source po, okay, galing din sa kanila. Okay, ang hostage daw i-release po sa Gaza, no? Okay, i-release sa Gaza. Okay, Israel-Hamas war, hostage release in Gaza. Okay, according to from the source of intelligence, mga kababayan, no? Okay, ang kasunduan po 4 na araw truce. Okay, itong 15 hostage, 50 po. 50 hostage. Okay, i-release po sa Gaza, no? Kung totoo po yung report ng intelligence community, no? And then na mag-swap po ng 150 Palestinian prisoner. O i-release ang hostages and hawak ng Hamas. And then i-swap po itong 150 Palestinian prisoner. Okay, so yan po ang kasunduan, mga suki, no? At saka itong 4 na araw truce, mga suki, no? Ayon pa rito kung okay, pa-release po ng paunti-unti po ang mga hostage po, hawak ng Hamas militan. Okay, tuloy-tuloy po ang temporary truce ito, mga kababayan, no? Ayan, so ayan po ang ay itong balita po, mga kababayan. Pakinggan natin itong kung totoo po ang kanilang report, mga suki, no? Okay, pakinggan natin, unahin natin ito. Ayan.
Is that Israeli government will not play ball, and the moment this ceasefire is done and over with,
okay,
unless the
here, so I do want to bring in welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, and I do want to get back into our top story right now. This all, of course, involving the Israel-Hamas war, and that is a live look over the Gaza border there with Israel as an agreement between two sides. That temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is expected to begin tomorrow morning. The agreement reached just hours ago a temporary pause in the fighting for the release of dozens of people taken hostage by Hamas during the October 7th attack on Israel. The truce, as of now, expected to begin tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Israel time. That is 3 a.m. Eastern time. The question now is what happens next here? So I do want to bring in Avi Melamed, a former Israeli intelligence official and founder of Inside the Middle East Institute, to talk all about this. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Hello, Josh. Thank you for having me.
All right, so first off, I want to talk about where Israel is headed here in the war. And I know that they have moved into southern Gaza. So explain to me where things go from here.
Well, Joshua, militarily speaking, Israel has basically encircled another major stronghold of Hamas in Gaza Strip, which is the area of Jabalia. It is located more to the northern part of the area of Gaza, and by doing that, actually, Israel has been, roughly speaking, taking control, not 100% yet, but overwhelmingly most parts of the northern part of Gaza Strip. Now, Israel has not yet started the major second phase of the war, which is moving down south towards Gaza Strip. There has been some preparatory actions taken by Israel in the southern part of Gaza Strip, yet we have not been witnessed yet the beginning of that second phase in the southern part of Gaza Strip.
I don't know if you can speak to this, but as Israel does move there into southern Gaza, how does that change the war overall? And how does southern Gaza really differ from where Israel has been so far?
Well, in the southern part of Gaza, there are the 8 Palestinian refugee camps. Now, I want to be very clear when I'm saying refugee camps, because people may have an image of, tents and tin cans. That is not the case. We are looking at a massively populated area, urban areas. They are all located in the southern part of Gaza Strip, including all the area, of course, in proximity to the Gaza-Egypt border. Now, as of now, roughly speaking, the northern part of Gaza Strip is about 1/3 of the total area of Gaza Strip, meaning that the other 2/3 are located in the south part of Gaza Strip. From a military perspective, we are actually looking at something similar to what we saw in the northern part of Gaza Strip, maybe much more intensified, because it is estimated that Hamas militants, many of them actually prefer to avoid confronting Israel in the northern part of Gaza Strip and went down south. So we could expect, I would say, an intensifying of the fight in the southern part of Gaza Strip with all the ramifications that comes along with that. And then there is another aspect of the southern part of Gaza Strip, that in between those populated areas, there are relatively large areas which are more open areas or rural areas, if you wish. And we know that there is also a huge network of tunnels that Hamas dug also in those areas as well.
It seems as though a lot of the fighting right now has been centered around hospitals. We know we've heard a lot about Shifa Hospital. We're hearing about some of the smaller ones as well. Why is it that there is so much fighting around these hospitals?
Well, I think that we have to be more accurate about it, because the hospitals are located, roughly speaking, in the whole area of Gaza City and the vicinity of Gaza City. So it is located, roughly speaking, in a massively populated areas. And those areas for themselves are the areas where Hamas militants basically have been fortifying themselves, either in buildings or in bunkers, in tunnels, and so on and so on. So the fight that takes place in those areas is not around the hospitals, in the sense they are not fighting for the hospitals, but they are mostly fighting in the vicinities around the hospitals where Hamas militants are located. Some of the hospitals, as you probably know, particularly, for example, Shifa Hospital, that is very famous, Israel, roughly speaking, has taken control, in the sense that basically there is no fight going on in the Shifa Hospital, but Israel right now, in the last couple of days, have been engaged in peeling, sort of speaking, and revealing the underground network of tunnels and other things that Hamas held beneath the Shifa hospitals. Some of those findings have been already exposed to the foreign media. I would expect that additional one will be exposed in the upcoming days.
I want to talk a little bit more about the agreement on the hostage release and this pause in fighting or temporary ceasefire. What are the benefits and the costs for both sides, Israel and Hamas?
Yes, Josh. For Hamas, the benefit, of course, is that for the time being, the pause in the fighting, assuming it's going to be the case, basically gives Hamas some time to breathe and regroup itself, at least for that period of time. And the other aspect of that, from Hamas perspective, that is the negative one, is that in the sense that one of Hamas' major resorts, I would say, is the whole card of the hostages. Meaning, Hamas would try to exhaust as much as possible that card, because it is the card that is essential for Hamas leaders' physical endurance and survival, so to speaking, on the ground. So what we see from the side of Hamas is they're trying as much as possible to exhaust that card. On the other hand, they cannot prolong longer and longer, with, at least when it comes to the issue of women and children, because the international community puts a lot of pressure on Hamas. Israel puts a lot of military pressure on Hamas. So at some point, he will have to basically run off, sort of speaking, of that card, at least of the civilians that he holds as the hostages. On the Israeli side, on the one hand, the advantage for Israel is that, probably, as you know, Israel is committed to bring back its hostages, the civilians that were kidnapped. And so in that sense, this is one of the most significant actions that Israel has to do as part of its commitment to its citizens. On the other hand, as we can all understand, other than the fact that it's kind of like posing the momentum for the time being of the Israeli war plan, which is for itself not something that crucial, the major challenge for the Israeli government is that it's very likely and obvious that the families of the rest of the hostages that are not going to be released in this phase, obviously are going to put an increasing pressure on the government of Israel to hurry up and to release their beloved ones so they could have them back home. And so in that sense, it's kind of like further emphasize the dilemma of Israel, who, reminding you, Josh, the Israeli government set a clear objective to the IDF, and this is to topple down the rule of Hamas in Gaza Strip. So you could see that each side, Israel and Hamas, has both disadvantages as well as advantages out of that deal.
We know that temporary truce, ceasefire, pause in fighting, whatever you want to call it, is expected to begin tomorrow morning around 10 a.m. Israel time. Does the fighting start to intensify at any point prior to that cutoff, or is it the same situation that's kind of ongoing? Because we're seeing a lot of activity there on the Israel-Gaza border in a lot of the images that we have shown.
Yes, well, the previous experience that we had on the ground in previous rounds with Hamas and other militant organizations is that towards a ceasefire, there is a tendency of an intensification of the fight on the ground. So it's very likely that we could expect something similar as well tomorrow morning. Tonight and tomorrow morning, we should definitely be expecting that. It's not something unprecedented, to the opposite. This is something that we always experience in different previous rounds.
Back to talking about the hostage and ceasefire deal. What are your thoughts overall on that? Did you believe, based on your experience, that it would actually happen?
Well, Josh, yesterday at this time of the day, I was interviewed to another major Israeli media platform, and I was asked exactly about the question. That was before the Israeli government was actually gathering last night, Israel time, to discuss the whole deal. And I evaluated in that interview yesterday that the Israeli government is going to approve the deal. And indeed, as I anticipated, the Israeli government approved the deal. I hope that it's going to take off and be carried on and executed on the ground. But again, we have to wait and see what will happen, because, as I said before, we always know, based upon our experience, that those pauses or ceasefires or temporary ceasefires, whatever you want to call them, are very fragile. And so we have to see how things will evolve on the ground.
Does the war continue here once that ceasefire, that temporary pause, is over? Does the war just kind of continue as it has over the past 6 weeks?
Well, based upon the Israeli government formal decision from last night, the Israeli government formal decision includes a clause or an article that actually goes back and makes very clear that the Israeli government is determined to continue the war to obtain the objective of eliminating Hamas rule in Gaza Strip. And it says very clearly, as formally in this government decision, that once the ceasefire is done and over with, the war will be resumed. And Israeli military forces will continue with the war plans as planned. So at least from that perspective, it seems like that we should expect the continuation of the war. It's clear that Hamas will try to play with the count of the hostages, maybe trying to elude that it's willing to do another deal in the next 10 days or 15 days, hoping that by doing that, it will basically continue and hold Israeli military forces on the ground. The question is whether Israeli government will play ball with Hamas in that regards. My tendency is that Israeli government will not play ball, and the moment this ceasefire is done and over with, unless there is already another ceasefire, another agreement that is being brewed, which will lead within the next week to another quota of Israeli hostages being released. Unless something like that happens, I would expect that once this ceasefire is done and over with, Israeli military forces on the ground in Gaza will immediately resume the military operation.
All right, Avi Melamed, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and help break all of this down. Is there anything else that you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Well, Josh, there is one thing that I think it's important to notice. We all notice that how the Iranians, we know that the Iranians are involved in all these things, even though the Iranians saying they are not involved in the war, they are very much involved in this war, just using their proxies. And in that regards, I want to notice two major significant developments. One, the Houthis in Yemen, a major Iranian proxy, has been apparently yet again trying to attack Israel and trying to attack targets in the Red Sea. And the other thing which is very interesting, we have noticed in the last 24 hours an escalation in the frictions between United States forces in Iraq and Iranian-backed Iraqi militias in Iraq. This morning, there has been a U.S. military attack on one of those militias who has been constantly attacking United States bases in Iraq and Syria. The U.S. attack this morning caused some significant number of fatalities among the Iraqi militias. So we have to follow very closely that development to see how things will turn down. When we are obviously, our attention is focused in the story of Gaza Strip, at the same time, we must keep constant connection with what's going on in the other arenas, namely Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen. The common denominator of all those arenas is that they are all basically, in all those arenas, there are the Iranian-backed proxies who are constantly trying to ignite, sort of speaking, attack and fire on those arenas as part of the Iranian master plan to basically not reach to the point of a regional war, but to create a pressure on the United States through the using of the proxies, hoping that the pressure on the United States will result in a U.S. administration pressure on Israel to stop the war. We should be very aware of that, and we should pay close attention to what happens in those arenas, and particularly right now, as I said, in the context of what's going on in Iraq and Yemen.
Thank you again for taking the time to join us and help break it all down. We appreciate it.
Of course, George. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody.
Okay. So updated po tayo pag-release po ng hostage diyan po sa north po ng Jabalia ba yun? Jabalia? Okay, diyan po sa Gaza Strip, no? Okay, parte north. Doon daw i-release ang yung mga hostages hawak po ng Hamas militant. Samantalang 150 naman prisoner, swap, kapalit po ng 50 hostage, 150 po ang prisoner po ng mga Palestinian mga suki, no? Okay, so minomonitor pa rin natin po ang kaganapan dyan, no? Okay, sana po ang truce na yan, hindi na temporary, ay tuloy-tuloy na po ang mga suki, mga kababayan, no? Okay, so yan po ang update. Okay, direkta po doon galing po sa area ng bakbakan yan, mga suki, no? Okay, ako lang po ang binigyan po ng ganyan po, mga suki, no? Okay, dahil magtiwala sila sa itong maliit na po na corporation, mga suki, no? Maliit lang ng corporation, pero nagtiwala po ang daigdig sa atin, mga suki, no? Ayan. Mahirap yon. Okay. Kasi hindi pa kasi inhaluan natin ng kasinungalingan ng balita natin, no? Okay. Plain at saka plain truth lang ang pagbalita po, mga kababayan, no? Walang kasama po ng mga manipulation ng balita. Okay, hindi po twisted natin ang balita. Basta yung totoo lang balita, mga suki, no? Ayan. Yon lang ang credibility natin. Okay, pagbalita mga suki sa News Online, mga suki, no? Ayan.
Ang gobyerno administration pinagbalita at ay nakalay sa may subang kasalukuyan at napapanahon. Mapapolitika, tinikilingan, walang tinatampihan, at walang tinapamigan ang programa ito. Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho lamang.
Okay, ang itong itinerary ng president natin, itong si Ferdinand President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., okay, to General Santos Government Center, General Santos City, okay, 23 November 2023, Thursday po. Ito po ang mga naka-schedule, no? Ang arrival po ng Pangulo ay mga 1:20 p.m. sa General Santos, no? Anong purpose pagpunta diyan? Okay, distribution of various assistance, coverage, distribution of coverage, distribution of various government assistance po, no? Okay, ang coverage code, open, okay, no prepared speech, okay, site inspection of damage sa City Planning and City Housing Office, okay, coverage code, close in, situation briefing with select regional agencies, coverage code, open but due to limited space mga suki, okay, limited numbers shall be allowed inside, and the rest of media shall stay in an adjacent monitoring room. Okay, media notes. One, coverage code. Please refer to code for activity. Okay, number two, media ingress between 11, kailangan doon na kayo, 11 a.m. to 12 noon. 1 hour, okay, prior to the president arrival, media must be settled down. Okay, ang responsible mga maros dyan, okay, on site si Ruby Villaverde. Okay, bibigay ko pa bang number niya? Hindi na. Para lang mga media nakakalam, no? Itong si Grace Binoya, okay, at saka itong okay, dating kasama natin, PIA on-site, si Harlem Jude Perolino, no? Ayan. Note, please be on standby for further update. Okay, galing po ito ng PIA, okay, Jensen, okay, itong kababayan natin sa taga Zamboanga, okay, si Cathy Apalacio, mga suki, no? Kilala natin ito magmula kanyang buon-buonan ng ulo hanggang okay, sa kailaliman po ng paa niya, no? Ganun po pagkakilala natin itong kay Cathy Apalacio, mga suki, no? Ayan. So, sundin lang po ang protocol ng media. Okay, dyan po sa General Santos, mga suswerte kayo, pinupuntahan po ng presidente, no? Ayan. So, sige. Ayan. Ito po.
Ang buong administration ng balita at iba ay tumatalakay sa naisipang kasalukuyan at napapanahon. Mapapolitika, mapatinong, mapakomentaryo at balita ang programa ay patas sa lahat. Walang tinikilingan, walang tinatampihan, at walang tinapamigan ang programa ito. Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho lamang.
Okay, okay, lecture po mga kababayan. Galing po sa former President of the United States, okay, si President Barack Obama, no? Take action if you want changes. Okay, pakinggan natin, no? Okay, mga mahigit 5 minutos mga suki ang voice record na ito, no? Okay, pakinggan natin. Ayan.
You have to go through life with more than just passion for change, you need a strategy. I'll repeat that. I want you to have passion. You have to have a strategy. Not just awareness, but action. Not just hashtags, but votes. You see, change requires more than righteous anger. It requires a program and it requires organizing. The 1964 Democratic Convention, Fannie Lou Hamer, 5 feet 4 inches tall, gave a fiery speech on the national stage. But then she went back home to Mississippi and organized cotton pickers. And she didn't have the tools and technology where you can whip up a movement in minutes. She had to go door to door. But to bring about structural change, lasting change, awareness is not enough. It requires changes in law, changes in custom. If you care about mass incarceration, let me ask you, how are you pressuring members of Congress to pass the criminal justice reform bill now pending before them? If you care about better policing, do you know who your district attorney is? Do you know who your state's attorney general is? Do you know the difference? Do you know who appoints a police chief? And who writes the police training manual? Find out who they are, what their responsibilities are. Mobilize the community, present them with a plan, work with them to bring about change, hold them accountable if they do not deliver. Passion is vital, but you got to have a strategy. And your plan better include voting. Not just some of the time, but all of the time. It is absolutely true that 50 years after the Voting Rights Act, there are still too many barriers in this country to vote. There are too many people trying to erect new barriers to voting. This is the only advanced democracy on earth that goes out of its way to make it difficult for people to vote. And there's a reason for that. There's a legacy to that. Change requires more than just speaking out. It requires listening as well. In particular, it requires listening to those with whom you disagree and being prepared to compromise. You know, when I was a state senator, I helped pass Illinois' first racial profiling law. And one of the first laws in the nation requiring the videotaping of confessions in capital cases. And we were successful because early on, I engaged law enforcement. I didn't say, this, you guys are so racist out there. You need to do something. I understood, as many of you do, that the overwhelming majority of police officers are good and honest and courageous and fair and love the communities they serve. And we knew there were some bad apples and that even good cops with the best of intentions, including, by the way, African American police officers, might have unconscious biases, as we all do. So we engaged and we listened and we kept working until we built consensus. And because we took the time to listen, we crafted legislation that was good for the police because it improved the trust and cooperation of the community, and it was good for the communities who were less likely to be treated unfairly. There will be times when you shouldn't compromise your core values, your integrity, and you will have the responsibility to speak up in the face of injustice. But listen, engage. If the other side has a point, learn from them. If they're wrong, rebut them, teach them, beat them on the battlefield of ideas. And you might as well start practicing now, because one thing I can guarantee you, you will have to deal with ignorance, hatred, racism, foolishness, trifling folks. I promise you, you will have to deal with all that at every stage of your life. That may not seem fair, but life has never been completely fair. Nobody promised you a crystal state. And if you want to make life fair, then you've got to start with the world as it is. So, that's my advice. That's how you change things. Change isn't something that happens every 4 years or 8 years. Change is not placing your faith in any particular politician and then just putting your feet up and saying, okay, go. Change is the effort of committed citizens who hitch their wagons to something bigger than themselves and fight for it every single day. Now it's your turn. And the good news is you're ready. And when your journey seems too hard, and when you run into a chorus of cynics who tell you that you're being foolish to keep believing, or that you can't do something, or that you should just give up, or you should just settle, you might say to yourself a little phrase that I found handy these last 8 years. Yes, we can.
Okay, yan po ang boses po ng motivation po ng former President Barack Obama ng Amerika. Okay. So, mag-pause muna tayo sandali and then magbasa tayo ng ibang balita mga suki, no? Ayan.
Ang buong administration pinagbalita at ay tumatalakay sa naisipang kasalukuyan at napapanahon. Mapapolitika, mapatinong, mapakomentaryo at balita ang programa ay patas sa lahat. Walang pinigilingan, walang tinatampihan, at walang tinatamigan ang programa ito. Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho lamang.
Okay, kung meron maka-guess po kung ilan taon na po itong halo-halo special, opinion balita at iba pa, yung intro ko. Okay, magbibigay ako ng pabuya mga suki, no? Okay, kung gaano nakatagal po ito ng halo-halo special, opinion balita at iba pa, no? Ayan. Okay, yan po ang former President ng United States of America, no? Okay. Okay. Ito po, sandali, no? Mag-post tayo. Okay, pupunta tayo sa national news na pero problema ang boses ko medyo gahol, no? Ayan. So, puntahan natin ang ayon po sa report ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, profit plunk 71% in 8 months. So, basahin po natin, no? Ang report po ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Ayan. Okay, wala tayong pangamba, no? Okay. Malaking ang reserve po ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, no? Manila, Philippines, the earning, ang kita po ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, BSP, okay, plunk by 71%, okay, to 22.91 billion pesos. Can you imagine that? Okay? Billion po ang binibilang po kita ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, no? From January to August, okay, versus last year, 78.82 billion as expenses soared. Okay, but preliminary data showed that the total revenue of the central bank mostly comprised of interest income on foreign investment, government securities and treasury bond went up by 2.1%, okay, to 117.13 billion pesos from 114 0.72 billion a year ago. So, different po ng mahigit 3 billion, no? Kumpara sa isang taon. So, yan po ang kita po ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, no? Nag-increase ng mahigit 3 billion. Okay, during the 8-month period, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas interest earning rose by 23.1% to 127.52 billion from 103.57 billion na. Hindi po million ang binibilang na. Billion po ang kita ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas na. Ayan. So yan. Okay, continue na natin ang balita. On the other hand, miscellaneous activities such as trading gain or losses, fees, penalties, and other operating income, among others, recorded in a net loss of 10.4 billion pesos, a reversal of a last year's gain, okay, surrounding to 11.15 billion. Okay, likewise, the total expenses of the central bank surged by 75.9% to 137.87 billion from 78.37 billion as interest expenses reached 109.67 billion pesos. Pesos ang sinasabi rito, no? Okay, 22.5 times last year. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas reported a 2.7% rise. The gain from foreign exchange fluctuation during the 8-month period, okay, to 43.67 billion, versus a year ago level of a 42.5 billion. So increase din po mga kabayan, maging 1 billion na. Okay, the profit of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas reached a record high level to 63.73 billion in 2022, 1.9 times the 33.98 billion book in 2021. This developed after the central bank tallied a net gain of a 67.66 billion from the foreign exchange fluctuation last year, 20.7 times the 3.26 billion recorded in the previous year. So yan po ang kasaysayan ng pera natin, mga suki, no? Okay. Okay, so stable, no? Stable tayo. Okay, under the Republic Act 1954, or an act establishing the Maharlika Investment Fund, signed by the President Marcos Jr. in July, the BSP is mandated to contribute 100% of the total declared dividend as computed under Republic Act 7653 of the new Central Bank Act in the first 2 years of the fund. Okay, in the succeeding years of the first 2 years of 100% dividend payout to the national government, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas will remit 50% of its declared dividend to the Maharlika Investment Fund, while the remaining 50% will go to the national coffer until the increase in the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas capitalization to 200 billion from 50 billion has been fully paid. Ayan. Yan po balita, no? Okay. Bayad na raw. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, Remolona Jr., Eli Remolona Jr. said, okay, the Bangko Sentral is set to remit about 62 billion pesos to the national government over the next 2 years to bankroll the Maharlika Investment Fund. Remolona earlier signed a memorandum order, okay, for the release of 31 billion pesos worth of dividends to the government to be used as Maharlika investment capital, and is set to remit, okay, the same amount next year. Okay, next year i-remit na. Okay, check na. Okay, gawa na po ng check na. So far, the government financial institution led by the Land Bank of the Philippines contributed 50 billion pesos to the MIF, or the Development Bank of the Philippines chip in 25 billion pesos. Chip in lang, no? 25 billion chip in lang. Okay, mga suki. Parang, di ba, pagkakain ka ng marami kang kasama, okay, then mag-agree muna, chip in lang muna, mga kababayan, na? Okay, lagi ko naalala yan. Pag magkain ng mga sama-sama mga barkada, okay, ng mga kabataan pa natin, yon chip in. Okay, so kanya-kanya maglabas po ng pera niya. Okay, para hindi po pabigat naman. Okay, mahirap kasi maglibre, no? Okay, mahirap yon. Okay, kaya nga, nauso po ang chip in, no? Ayan. So, yan po ang kwento po ng Central Bank ng Pilipinas, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Yan po ang katayuan natin, no? So, kampante tayo. Okay, meron na Maharlika Investment Fund. Okay, meron na Central Bank. Okay, tulong-tulong na po para magkalap ng pondo po sa mga proyekto natin, no? Ayan. Tapos meron pang Bureau of Customs, meron pang BIR, at saka yung mga GOCC po, mga puro pera po ng pamahalaan yun, no? Ayan. So, huwag lang ilagay lang sa bulsa, no? Huwag lang ilagay sa bulsa. Yan kasi masama pag ilagay sa bulsa, no? Okay, ilagay sa pitaka, yan lang masama. Pag hindi man ilagay sa pitaka, sa bulsa, okay man ang pondo ng Pilipinas, no? Okay, yun lang iwasan natin kunin tapos ilagay sa pitaka. Kunin lang mga sahod nyo. Kalaki ng sahod po mga suki, no? Okay. Ayan. Sahod lang kunin, wala na kayo problema. Hindi kami magingay. Hindi kami talaga magingay. Kung sahod lang, okay, yung mga pwede nyo gamitin, hindi yung gamitin na hindi man pwede gamitin mga suki, no? Okay. Yun ang ayaw natin yung gagamit ng pera ng pamahalaan, pondo ng public, and then naging personal mga suki, no? Ayan, yun ang masama Okay. Okay, Binancio, Sau resign. Problema talaga itong mga Bitcoin itong mga suki, no? Okay, bakit nag-resign ito? Ano namang kasalanan po mga suki ng Binance? Okay, mamaya natin basahin yun, no? Hanap tayo ng mga ibang okay, ang mga news na pinaka-importante, no? Okay, may paalala po ng SSS. Okay, hanggang 29 po pagkuha po ng deadline para pagkuha po ng UMID card para sa mga mag-apply mula sa 2017. Mula sa August 2017, no? Kailan ba kung mag-apply noon? Matagal na. Pero wala na kasi hindi na kailangan po ang UMID. Okay. Pero tinatago ko pa rin ang UMID ko, no? Hindi na pwede kasi 66 years old na ako mga kababayan, no? Ayan. Okay. Okay, ang hanggang December 29 ang deadline, pagkuha po ng umid. Okay, para sa mga naka-prime mula August 17, August 2017 hanggang December 2020, no? Okay, hindi nata kailangan sa mga, okay, yung mga tanda katulad namin, no? Okay, hindi na. Sige na. Ano pa? Okay, mag-break muna tayo. Nag-work tayo sa balita, no? Ay, nako.
Ang Bureau Administration pinagbalita at ay tumatalakay sa may subang kasalukuyan at nakapanahon. Mapapolitika, mapapinyon, mapakomentaryo at balita ang programa ay patas sa lahat. Walang kinikilingan, walang pinapamigan, at walang pinapamigan ang programa ito. Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho lamang.
Okay, ano ito? Funding slow, but opportunities remain. Philippine Startup Ecosystem Report 2020. Ano ibig sabihin ito, no? Ayan. Hindi natin maintindihan ang balita kung hindi natin basahin, no? Okay, sandali lang. Mag-break muna ko sa kabasahin ko ang balita. Ang oras natin, okay, kalimutan natin basahin. Okay, 38 minutos po. Hindi. 33 minutos mo pasado na po oras 7, mag-alas 8 naman, no? Okay, 33. Okay. Sandali lang, pause muna ko sandali, no?
Ang Bureau Administration pinagbalita at ay tumatalakay sa may subang kasalukuyan at nakapanahon. Mapapolitika, mapapinyon, mapakomentaryo at balita ang programa ay patas sa lahat. Walang kinikilingan, walang pinapamigan, at walang pinapamigan ang programa ito. Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho lamang.
Ayan. Okay, sandali lang, balikan ko noon lang, no? Okay. Ayan, funding slow but opportunity remain. Philippine Startup Ecosystem Report 2023. Report ng mga Sukino, no? Pero di bale, nabasahin na natin, no? Okay, ano ito? Okay, fundraising for startups fell in 2023. Okay, a significant challenge still persists. Okay, steepling, po. Hindi steeping, no? Steepling the growth prospect of these companies. Okay, but there's much to be hopeful for within the Philippine startup ecosystem. Okay, there were the findings in a nutshell. Ayan po. Okay, of the Philippine startup ecosystem report, PECR 2023 published by venture capital firm, okay, Gobicor. Gobicor mga suki, no? Okay, Philippine Fund in partnership with the Alibaba Global Investment. Alibaba po mga suki, no? Okay. Alibaba pala. Okay. Or sandali lang na masakit. Sobra. Okay, masakit. Okay. Masakit ang kwan natin, no? Okay, basahin natin. Manila return to global top 100 list, emerging startup ecosystem. Okay, the amount of Philippine startup raised in 2023 so far was down 40% compared to last year, according to the report. In addition, there have only been amount of 40 deals made in the year so far, a 21% decline compared to the over 50 deals made in 2022. Average deal size, meanwhile, fell 37.5% from around 13 million US dollar in 2022 to just over 8 million this year. Laki binaba, no? Okay, Gabicor point, to adverse market condition influenced by the confluence of a factor, for the slowdown in funding and deal count. That include conservative investor approach in the face of a low borrowing cost as well as a shift of investor sentiment amid lower return from the debt investment and increased stock market uncertainty. Okay, so yan po ang balita, no? Wala na tayong oras dito. Okay, time na po pag-close naman ng programa sa umagang ito, no? Okay, wala na. Okay. Bakit biglang sumakit ang sipon ko? Ayan, ito po. Okay, ayan. Awesome! 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 Okay, so magpaalam tayo dito po sa balita natin Consolidated News. Okay, dala po ng ADLSNTV Corporation at saka itong Mind of Global Food Lines. Okay, so tapos na po ang balita. Okay, dito po lamang sa programa Halo-Halo Special, Opinion, Balita at iba pa. Kasama po sa Servisyo Publiko, Tinig ng Mamamayan. And then, sumbungan po ng mamamayan, no? Okay, tuloy-tuloy lang ang balita natin hanggang makaya pa natin magbalita, no? Walang puknat na balita. Okay? Para lang makatulong tayo sa kapayapaan, mga suki, no? Ayan. So, yan po ang araw nito, okay, ng balita po ng ADLSNTV Corporation, no? Okay. So, wala na talagang oras. Overtime naman, pasok naman sa overtime. Okay, paalam tayo. Okay? Wala tayong masamang tinapay. Lagi wala tayong masamang tinapay sa kapwa, no? Okay, paalam tayo. This has been Abstamahan lamang po, no? Okay, so babalik tayo mamayang hapon, mga suki-suki sa kahanginan, no? Sa Internet News Online. Bye-bye na.
Ang Provincial Station Pinong Balita ay tumatalakay sa naisipang kasalukuyan at nakapanahon. Mapapolitika, mapatinong, mapakomentaryo at balita ang programa ay patas sa lahat. Walang kinikilingan, walang tinatanggihan, at walang tinatanggihan ang programa ito. Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho lamang.